Morning. First thing I'm going to do is get these animals down in the back pasture, and then I'm going to get the tractor and come down and grab the sickle mower and get that tuned up. Come on, boys. Come on. Come on, cows. Let's go. Come on, cows. Hopefully they're smart enough to all go through the gate and not go on the wrong side of the fence. Yeah, it looks like they're coming. Let's go. Come on. Hey, Henry. Come on. Usually this hog panel gate will keep them in, but the other day for some reason they decided they wanted to be on the other side of it and they trounced it, so I'm gonna have to get a gate hook and run a strand of barbed wire across the top. And I do have posts come down here, so I can run electricity down here if I needed to. We did get most of a day's worth of rain, but the pond is still down at least 3 feet. I've got them out on Gracie's meadow today, and I've got them all penned up out there. They can get into George's meadow and then get in the woods road and come back up around, and that'll take them a little bit to figure that out. But they've chewed this field down pretty well, and they've chewed the top field out pretty well, so I want all the sheep and cows over there today. This field here, Hidden Meadow, only has barbed wire on the interior fence. There's sheep fence and barbed wire around the exterior, but the sheep can get through the barbed wire here. So it'll keep the cows in, but not the sheep. So if I put them all out there, the sheep will be out of there pretty quickly. I've popped quite a few more rocks out of here. These big ones that are still left, I'll have to get my nephew with his excavator to see if he can dig some of those out. But I'm gonna go get the 200 and grab this McCormick mower here and put that on and bring it up and go through it, make sure that's good to go. I heard my first rooster crow this morning, and when the turkeys go in July, the roosters are gonna go with them. And so they'll be about 3.5 months old. And they're great for stew. I make chicken pot pie with them. They're not really great for roasting. There's not a ton of meat on them, but they do make good pot pies. Funny thing is, I got rid of like 20 something laying hens. I'm still getting the same number of eggs with 20 something less birds. And then I got about 40 pullets that should start laying here in about 3 months. So I gotta get some more egg customers. It's tough with eggs. It's one of those commodities that kind of waxes and wanes. You'll get a lot of people will buy chickens. They'll want their own eggs, and then they get inundated with eggs, and then they sell a few extra, and then I don't know if they just, they think that they're gonna make a lot of money with eggs, but then you'll get a whole flood of people will have eggs for sale for a period of time, and then they'll realize that the egg market really isn't very profitable, and then everybody will go away, and then there'll be a couple of us, and so we'll enjoy a period of time where everything is stable, and I can make enough money off the eggs to cover the costs. And people who think they're gonna get rich off eggs, that's gonna be another whole video. The cost of actually, getting set up with chickens, you won't live long enough with a small backyard flock of chickens to make your money back. And particularly in these rural areas where you don't have that market, and where my wife, particularly that market where you don't have a lot of clientele who are willing to pay extra for organic or free range or the quality produce and meats that we have here. They'll go to Market Basket and be happy with their 99-cent eggs. So that's a rant. I'll have to save that for another day. But let's get the tractor out and go get the mower. So this is a 1956 Farmall 200 that replaced the Farmall Super C in 1954. And an option that these came with was the Fast-Hitch, they called it. And it's a 2-socket hitch that you can attach and detach the implements from the tractor seat. If there's a drive line, you'll have to hook that on, obviously, but all the mounted implements could be just it's like a snap. You pull these tabs up right here, and the ears, the prongs go in, and then the tabs snap back down and lock it into place. And for a period of time, John Deere wanted to buy this patent, but International wouldn't sell it. And so John Deere went with the Ferguson 3-point hitch system, and then that became a universal standard, and this kind of fell by the wayside, which is unfortunate because this is really a great system. But I want to whirl the tangents today, and that happens. I was going to edit this part out, but I think I'm going to let you see it. So what happened was I went to back up. Okay, let me start at the beginning. I had my post hole digger on blocks, but the cows decided to itch on it, knocked it over into the mower, which prohibited me from really getting as close as I wanted to. So that was my first problem. The second problem was this rock. My front wheels were getting hung up on it, and so when I'd almost get to where I wanted to go, it was so much work for the tractor to get up over it that I was spinning a little bit right here and there, and so I couldn't quite latch in because you got to come back just enough to snap it. And then you can see here where I hit the post hole digger with a tire. So now I got to get this post hole digger out of here and somewhere else and get it blocked back up where the cows don't go. I'm really thinking putting my machinery down here where the cows are is a bad idea because they won't stop pushing on it and rubbing on it, and it just makes my life difficult. So I had it kind of out on the side pasture where they didn't go, but I wanted to get it away from the house view so you can't see when you come in. But I got to come up with another plan apparently. So anyway, it's hooked on, and you can see the ground here where I was spinning and just not having a good time first thing this morning. So the first thing we hook up once this is on, make sure that's latched in, and I'll back up a little bit more and push that in. The second thing, this rod right here was bent by the cows, so I just had to straighten that out. And what this rod does here is it goes to the rock shaft on the side, and that's what actually lifts the mower up and down. You use the Fast-Hitch to attach the mower, and then we'll bring it up and get the PTO, the drive line. You want the drive line to be horizontal, parallel with the ground, and that way you don't put stress on your U-joints. So let's get this hooked up. There's little pins right here. Take those out. Now we can lift up the cutter bar. The next thing we want to do is get the drive line on. But I'm going to take this actually up to the house and grease it first, so we'll put that on up there. So the next thing is typically would be the drive shaft. We'd hook that up, but I didn't bring my grease gun down, so I'll do that up at the house. The third thing you hook up is this right here, and this braces the mower, because when you're mowing, it puts a force towards the rear, particularly at the end, pulling towards the rear, so this stabilizes it. So we hook it here. I'm not putting it back down here. This was a terrible idea. So I gotta come up with a new parking area. Shoot. Grease fitting on this universal. I'm gonna have to change out this grease fitting. Alright, I think I can shut the tractor off now. Drive line's on. The breakaway's on. It's not really a breakaway, it's a stabilizer. This is a breakaway here. Don't lose this. So one of the problems people have with sickle bar mowers is they park them down on the fence row and they leave them, and then they go back whenever later, hook them on, and they don't work right. And so these things, when they're tuned up, they work perfectly. If you let them sit around and don't take good care of it, like anything, you run into issues. So we'll go start out with the basics, go through how it works, and then I'll show you how to keep it in tune. So this is a Farmall FC-21. The F is for Fast-Hitch. And so the C, this was made for a Super C or a 200. The 230 is a little different as far as how the mower is picked up. Even though it has a Fast-Hitch, everything else is different. And 240, the same thing. So like I said, when I hook this up, I want this drive line to be parallel to the ground. So we fixed the universal. It's all been greased. I'm gonna pop this off here in a minute and check my oil level. And so this just takes gear oil, and sometimes I'll put that hydraulic booster in my hydraulic things. It just stops leaks. The gaskets on these eventually start leaking. This one's been fine, but we'll go from there. You can just put heavier oil in it too. So the first thing, you've got your drive line coming out, and then you got the spring here, and this is a slip clutch. So if you say you encumber an obstacle with your knife, and so these sickles can't slide back and forth, the first thing that usually slips and gives is your slip clutch, and it just makes a grating sound, like a, and so it's really loud. But that's the first fail safe. The second is your pitman right here, and it's made out of wood, and so sometimes if you hit something that this slip clutch doesn't catch, that's your second fail safe, and that'll bust. And the tricky part with this is getting the bolts on. You can see I got some going one way and some the other. It's just because you've got this weight on the flywheel here that prohibits getting in behind there. So fixing this in the field is usually not the funnest thing in the world, but it's often done. And then the third fail-safe on it is you've got this breakaway here. So what happens is if you hit something with this an immobile object, and so you're going forward, you hit like a tree or a fence post or a stump or something, that sickle bar will cut back like this, and it'll break away here, and then you can get through the obstruction. And then to correct that, you drop it back to the ground, back the tractor up, and it snaps back in. So we're all connected. This goes to the rock shaft on the side. That's what lifts up the cutter bar, and so we're not going to use the Fast-Hitch anymore. And then we've got another rock shaft. There's two on the side of the motor, and that'll tip the drawbar side to side. And so what that'll do is that'll give me a little bit more lift when I pick it up. And so once you've got everything greased, that part over there is all pretty straightforward. Where people run into trouble is they get bent fingers. I'm gonna have to jack this one up and see what's going on here. You can see that that's all bent, so we'll probably have to put a new one on, but we'll have to take this strap off here to get to it. So we'll check that out. These sickles here, where it hits this shoe, have to be really sharp, otherwise you start clogging up here. So these are under-serrated sickle sections, and this is typically what you'll find at like Tractor Supply these days. And then you've got the fingers, which are also called rock guards. And so these, if you hit a rock in the field, it's supposed to slide the mower up over it, but these get bent, and then it messes up your clearance in between the sickle section and the finger. With these old mowers, the bar itself sometimes gets out of true, so you have to shim the backside of these fingers with washers in order to bring it up and get it so the clearance is correct. But this one doesn't look good, so we're probably going to take this one out. And so my brother just rebuilt this for me and put all new sections on. These are called sections. These right here are called sections, and it works like scissors. So it's this right here, and so you can see how this goes. This right here slides back and forth, and how that happens is with this pitman, and it just goes. See, this is bolted at the edge here, so when this turns around, this will go like this, and that's what slides the knife back and forth. So this whole section right here with all these sections on it, this whole piece with all these sections in it, is called the knife. And so this knife can be removed. You just unhook the end of your pitman here. And the smart thing to do, which I didn't do it this year, but usually I do it, is you take this knife out and store it indoors over the winter. You don't usually want to leave this outside. You also want to avoid painting this if you can, and so the paint that's on it is just from the edges here. And then you got your hold downs here, and you need to put the high arch hold downs on when you put lock nuts. Typically these knife sections here are riveted, but they're a lot easier to change out with bolts. But in order to do so, you have to change out all your arches and put high arches down, which you can still buy all these pieces from Case International. And then we use the longer bolts here. So it's in pretty good shape. I just have to change out a couple pieces. And the last part is the end. I usually take out one knife section and put this double section in the end, and that stops this from plugging the outer shoe. These fingers, they used to have removable ledger plates, and the ledger plate, you can see this is the serrated part here, and so this part used to be removable, and you just get a box of ledger plates and pop these out and put new ones in, and it was tedious and time consuming. You'd take this whole knife out and you'd sharpen each section, and I'll show you the knife sharpener that I have, which you would set on the wheel or a vise or a tripod. And so the old horse-drawn mowers obviously had a wheel, and this knife sharpener was designed to set on that wheel. And the last part is the swather or your grass board, and I can't tell you how many mowers I've seen that this is missing on. And a lot of times if people are mowing under fences or along fence rows, they'll take these off because they get hung up. But if you're cutting grass, you need to have this on, because what this does is it takes the grass you've cut here and pulls it back, and so you've got a swath about 1.5 feet wide to put your tire in when you come back through. And then your inner shoe back here rides in that clear section of grass that your swather cleared back, because what will happen is if you don't have that on and you don't have the grass pulled back, when you come back through, you're trying to recut grass that's already been cut, and it usually will plug up your mower. Usually when I mow, I'll have it so it's tipped up just a little bit, and that way it'll ride up over obstacles, and it just seems to mow a little bit better. So this device I have here is an old McCormick knife sharpener, and so this part right here would set on your tire, and then you would run your knife through here and out through the back, and then this right here is your grinding wheel, which would grind down the edge of your knife, and then you just crank this like that, and that would sharpen it. And so they had a tripod for it, and you could take this handle off and put a pulley on it, and you could have a treadle pedal for your feet, and later on they had it for an electric motor. But this is just an antique now that I keep, and I think it's cool. It says McCormick-Deering on it, and it's in just like brand new shape. And I have the original manual for it and everything, so I think that's pretty cool to have. You'll notice the 61 cub is missing, and so I sold that yesterday. When I tested it out, I turned the PTO on and it worked. You push the clutch in, it stopped. Let the clutch out, it came back on. But then as soon as I put it under load when I brought it home, the PTO wouldn't stay going, and instead of trying to invest more money in it and time, I let it go. And cubs are hot right now, so I actually turned a profit on it. And I know that you're probably looking at my Hinger here with my rotary mower, and you're wondering why I didn't lower it to the ground. I've got to do some maintenance underneath, and so typically I lower my influence down when I'm done, but it's sitting up right now. My dogs love to follow tractors around, and I guess it goes without saying, when you're going to use a sickle bar mower, it runs pretty quietly. And so you want to make sure that there's no kids or dogs especially around, because that could go south real quick. The noise of the machine's over here, and this just makes a little bit of a rattle going through the grass. So you always want to make sure and we don't have a disaster like that. So what we want to do before we go out in the field is go on every one of these fingers or rock guards. That one's too small. Tighten these up. Because what happens is you get out there and this will get vibrating. You end up losing a rock guard. It's a lot easier to fix it here than it is out in the field. So it's 3/4, so it's one size down from 3/4. Is it 11/16 or 5/8? 11/16. So check that. And so we look at this here. You can see it's got a little bit of a bow to it, but that's because it's flexing on the support rod. You can see this one's towed down a little bit. There's different serial numbers on these fingers. We want to check. See here, there's a gap. You want to make sure that it's gonna cut. We want it close enough so it cuts, but not so far apart that. See, with this one in here, this one's a problem. Look at that. See that? So we've got to shim it and back. It's gonna wear that knife section down. So we'll take this finger off right here, shim it. All we should have to do here is loosen this up enough to get in behind it. A little bit more. Let's see if this 1/4-inch washer will fit in there. Really only need a little bit. Hard to hold the camera and do this at the same time. Just take that, put it in behind, so that shims it. And now it's right there. So then we can tighten this back down. Now it's not hitting the top. We're not going to break the tip of the section off here. All right, now I'll just put the wrench back on. Tighten that up. Okay, that one's good. These will vibrate loose. I've been buying stainless bolts for these with the nylon lock washers, and usually that works, but occasionally it does come unhooked. These really need to be snug. 1/2 on that, and then 7/16 on the knife sections. If you crank these too much, you'll end up snapping the bolt, so they're only probably grade 3. So you gotta be careful you don't snap them off. But you do want it to be snug. And the way these bolts are, they are fluted, so they'll bite in on the back side. You'll know when you lose one of these because you'll get a section of unmowed grass. So you can't just go down to the fence row and grab your sickle mower and throw it on and start mowing, because then you'll end up broke down. And so some of you have asked, do I cut all my own hay? Do I buy my hay? And the answer is yes. The good fields that went with this farm got sold off before I even was born. And so the hay fields that I do cut, I have to drive to. And the closest one is about 3/4 of a mile up through the woods to the land trust. I gave up some of them, and I had 4 John Deere 24T square balers, and I had several tractors for baling hay. But the problem with old equipment is you spend most of your time working on it. And new equipment is so far out of my reach for price. It doesn't make any sense to own it. So I've got 3 oldish sickle bar mowers. The newest one I've got is probably a 1988 or 89 International, Case International. And then I've got a brand new tedder rake. So I ted the hay, which fluffs it up, and then I could put it in rows. And the hay at the land trust, I just go pitchfork it loose into the truck and throw it in some of the extra stalls. And then the other fields that I still have, I cut it and ted it and rake it, and then I have somebody custom bale it into rounds. And then my sister puts in about 10,000 square bales a year, so I go over and buy like 150 square bales, and that usually gets me through. I'll probably get less this year because I'm cutting back on the cattle and probably get rid of a few sheep, so I shouldn't need as much. So I put a little bit in there, get it close to the top, but don't overfill it. You gotta let it expand a little bit. First thing tomorrow, we'll drive to the land trust and go cut some hay. So I'll fuel the tractor up and put some additives in the front. One thing people fail to do with these old tractors is remember that these tractors were built to run on, regular gasoline with lead in it. And so you put this lead substitute in, and not a lot. I use just a couple of glug-glugs per tank is enough. And the reason you put this in is because when these tractors were built, the valves and the seats were very soft, and they were designed to have lead to lubricate that. And now with the unleaded gas, that's missing, so you have to add this in. Then the second thing I put in, and usually I use marine stable because it's better, but I think I'm out of it. So we put this fuel protect in there. So I'll dump some of that in. And then we're good to go. I hate the new fuel cans, those plastic things that don't vent. They got that stupid spill-proof nozzle on it. I've spilled more fuel with those than I've ever spilled more fuel with those than I've ever spilled with these old metal cans. I gave them all away and went around the yard sales and bought a pile of these old metal Eagle cans. That's all I use. Gas gauge. Yeah, it's about half full. If you put too much fuel in here, when you go uphill, it comes out the top, so we don't want to do that. Alright, everything's good. Oil's good. Check that. Okay, yeah. Hopefully this video has been beneficial to you, and I hope you've enjoyed it. I really appreciate everybody who watches and comments on the videos. I really do appreciate that. And as always, have a good night, and thank you for watching. We'll talk to you next time.